We're back, Empires of the Future, talking today about singing. 1 to 10. 1 to 10, how much do you like to sing, Denton?
I like to sing more than other people probably like to hear me sing. But
one of those, eh?
Yeah, I say that. Yeah, I joke about that like a lot of people do. I'm not actually a terrible singer. And I think most...
Yeah, I've had you sing before.
Yeah,
like, I've asked you to sing.
Right, you have
more
literally
than one
asked
occasion.
me to sing, so clearly I can't be that
Can't be
bad.
that bad.
Or you're
I have
really,
no taste.
really gracious.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's possible.
Yeah, I like to sing, though.
Good.
I enjoy it. Actually, I remember one time we were... can I go ahead and get into a story?
Of course.
Not to jump any guns here, but we were. I was showing up to evening service at First Southern.
Yes.
And back whenever evening service was like the mark of church faithfulness, you remember the days.
I remember.
And I showed up a little bit late, and
oh my goodness.
Yeah, I was not very faithful to my faithfulness class, and I kind of slipped into one of the pews where all the kind of young adult youth sit and started singing. I just like joined in the hymn and was apparently louder than almost everyone else in the pews around me, because as soon as I started singing, like everybody turned and looked at me like, oh man, I must sing really loud. But it's because I enjoy singing, particularly I really enjoy singing together at church.
Yeah. Well, man, you are a great candidate for a discussion about
yes,
singing together.
I am.
Christian music in a choir
a big fan.
all the way.
What about you, Jackson? Do you enjoy singing? You better say yes.
I do.
Yeah.
I part of what I do now is singing for a living, strangely enough. So yeah, I actually songs are one of the most music is one of the most amazing things I've ever run into in my life. It is one of those things that I literally still can't relate or understand people who would say, yeah, sure, I could sing or I could play an instrument. I just don't have any interest in it. I don't get it. Don't get it one bit. And so obviously that's where we're going today. Talk quite a bit about the benefits of singing. We got this article from the Washington Post by Alexandra Moe about that singing with other people in particular is really good for you. And there's a lot to say about this. Singing is a deep thing. There are questions that we could have from the Bible, questions about the origin of singing, question about the destiny of singing. Like, well, is singing something that will happen in the kingdom? And I will look forward very much to getting all the way to the depths of that. So that'll be fun. I think that music is one of the most amazing things that exist. I think it's a thing that if we didn't have it, I don't know that we would know. You know, I think it's such a strange thing in this world that is something that is magical in some ways. That it is there is deeper knowledge about it than even we know, but that there's a reason why a lot of what has made, say, Disney is songs. Certain kinds of songs.
Yeah. Who doesn't have a Disney playlist on their iPhone?
Right.
That you, especially if you have kids, and even for many of us, even if we don't have kids, that you don't turn to every now and then for a little pick me up.
Right. Well, here we are on an afternoon. We just had lunch. I'm taking up what has been a practice of yours, I know, for quite a while, which is the old afternoon coffee.
Oh, yes.
It's what was it yesterday? I think 26 degrees outside, and I hate cold, as I've probably mentioned many times already, even on this podcast. And so it's not hard to get me to drink a nice hot drink as these afternoons are cooling off. I wanted to ask you, when did you start drinking coffee, and why did you start? How old were you when you started drinking coffee? Let me ask that first.
When I had my first drink of coffee, you know my mom, right?
I do.
And she is a hardcore coffee drinker. I probably had my first drink of coffee before I even remembered.
Wouldn't you like to know, like you're saying your mom's a hardcore coffee drinker, which I know that about her, like how many milligrams of caffeine through coffee have been through your system? Like I would love to know that for myself. The answer would be a lot.
Yeah, the answer would be a lot.
God knows. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. A lot. I don't think I would want to know the answer to that. That might scare me. I might not want to drink coffee anymore after that. So I think once it's left my system, it's left my world altogether. I don't need to know any more about it.
Yeah.
I've used it. I'm done with it. I probably started drinking coffee, though, as an actual coffee drinker by choice when I was in high school. I think I probably was freshman or sophomore. I started drinking coffee, though,
That's
socially.
funny to think of you as a freshman or a sophomore starting to drink coffee because you're like 14.
Yeah, young.
You know,
Too young to probably.
Neither you nor I is a particularly tall guy. Hey, maybe we stunted our growth, man.
That's probably what happened. Stunted our growth.
I should have been 6'2".
Yeah. Yeah. I started drinking it, though, socially. So I had between my mom being a big coffee drinker, but also my memo and her sister, they would, when they got together, and which was often because they lived nearby and they were, very close, we'd go over to my Aunt Ruby's house, and it was just the thing to do. You sit around the table, you drink coffee.
Yeah.
And by the time I was 14, I was ready
You
to
were into
engage
that.
with the talking and the drinking. And so, I started drinking coffee, granted, with a fair amount of cream and sugar mixed in. And, it wasn't that long before it went from a social thing to, you know what, I actually kind of enjoy the taste and also the benefits that come along with drinking coffee. And so, I just kind of picked it up from there. It only worsened through college and then working at Toyota. Definitely coffee was a go-to. But yeah, how about you? When did you start drinking coffee?
Before I let you go, what is your coffee of choice these days? If you,
I am so not picky. When I say not picky, I am picky in the sense of most like fancy or expensive brews of coffee.
Yeah, I'm out.
I don't think are any good. So what I drink at home, if I just go to buy coffee for myself and to brew at home, which I do, Folgers classic roast.
One day maybe we're going to have Folgers sponsor our podcast because that's going to be my answer as well. We'll see.
Yeah. The best part of waking up, Folgers in your cup.
That's right.
And Denton and Jackson in your ears.
There you go. I can see Folgers is the empire of the future. That's going to be the...
Are we going to be that podcast that eventually we're like, today's podcast is brought to you by Folgers? No, we'll never be that podcast. We don't want to be that podcast. But yeah, Folgers, but I'm also okay with Great Value. Also okay with Maxwell House.
I'm a little bit, if it's too acidic, we tried to drink Maxwell House right when we got married, and I had to get away from it because I think it's just, I would not have known when people talk about sort of these sorts of things as far as like, the acidity, like it took me a while to go like, man, something about the way my mouth feels and the way my stomach feels. And that's what I figured out about Maxwell House. It was just too acidic for me. And that is the case, when we used to go to the Y a lot, whatever coffee was going on at the Y, I was like, ooh, no, I don't like it.
Tasted Maxwell House.
And, we had friends, some of our guys who were running with us at that time were just like, no, we have to go there to get it because it's free. And it's like, man, I don't care. I'm as cheap as the next guy, but I got to get beyond that. So I am pretty convinced Folgers guys. Well, and I'm the same as you. Most coffee that you would buy at some of these bigger chains is too strong for me, and I do not need or enjoy that.
Yeah. Bigger chains or even like your local boutique coffee shop. Man, I'm all for, drinking, eating local and that kind of stuff. But just to be perfectly honest, if I'm out and I'm like, I'm going to stop off and get a cup of coffee, I'm not going to one of the local coffee shops. I'm not going to Starbucks. I'm probably going to the gas station up the street to fill up my cup of coffee for 99 cents or whatever.
Yep.
That's just the kind of coffee I've always grown up on. And so people talk about, oh man, that's just such bad coffee and everything like that. Maybe, but guess what? It's the coffee that I'm used to. So it's the coffee I prefer. Starbucks can keep their Pike's Place roast or whatever it is, and I'll keep drinking my Folgers.
That's right. Folgers is Boardwalk to me.
Boardwalk? Does that mean really good?
Pike's Place made me think of Plaza. What is that called?
Huh?
What's the counter? What's the friend to Boardwalk on a Monopoly board?
Oh, I don't know.
Park Place.
Park Place?
Pike's Place made me think of Park Place, which made me think of Boardwalk, and here we are. So you asked what got me into drinking coffee. Strangely enough, one more thing we have in common. I had a mama, and she drank coffee, and I started asking when I was like 10, "Hey, I'm what's up with that? I'm interested in that." And so she gave me coffee with cream and sugar. And so basically, when I was a kid, especially in the summers, I was at her house a lot, and especially on Fridays. Like back then, she would go to 3 or 4 different grocery stores. And so you needed to have something to keep you going on those days. So we'd drink coffee in the morning, and then we'd go shopping at grocery stores for like 3.5, 4 hours, right? So you went to all these different stores buying different stuff. And yes, she was the influence on coffee with plenty of cream and sugar. And man, if you put a lot of cream and sugar in it, you can make most anything taste good.
That's right.
I will say that just the other day, here at Parlor Donuts, which is a local place that now has 5 locations. They have a location in Indy as well. I got a coffee and a cronut for $5.89, and
That's a pretty good deal.
yeah, it was not bad. And the coffee was not super strong. I put some cream, which they had right there in it, and because that's where I am now. I did eventually cut out the sugar. I still drink a lot of cream in my coffee, but I don't need the plus sugar anymore.
When did you do that?
Yeah, that's every day.
Who are you?
Probably. Well, a lot of this, like many things, my wife was influential in this, saying, "Are you sure you need both cream and sugar?" And I was like, "I think I was sure until now."
Oh man, why is it terrible about that? One time my wife got me because she said, I was talking about, I don't drink too much soda, and she was like, "Yeah, but you drink all that creamer in your coffee," and I'm like, "Well, that's nothing like drinking a soda."
That's right.
And she said, "You go and look how much sugar is in like one serving."
I don't want to.
One serving of creamer, and then compare it to a can of soda.
But it's not carbonated.
But it's not carbonated. Yeah, that's right. No, she's exactly right. I realized that basically the amount of creamer I was drinking was like I was basically drinking a couple Mountain Dews every day.
Yeah.
And so I definitely cut back after that. And now I'm right back up to where I was. So it's basically just like I'm drinking a couple Mountain Dews every day. With the coffee I drink.
But now since I've seen you drink a Mountain Dew and now some coffee. So.
Man, I'm on a roll today.
You are. All right, so we're going to talk about singing. This article is about general health benefits of singing, but we're going to just talk about why we think singing is good, some of what the Bible has to say about singing. And so something that I didn't know, I have not looked up any sort of health studies on singing, but get this. So it talks about sort of a community choir that some folks here were a part of. And one of the things here, it says, quote, "After rehearsal, some of the singers provided a saliva sample to researchers examining whether singing affected their health and mood, and it did positively. The Sing With Us study, which enrolled Hardy, the lady who this article is about, and 192 others, is part of a growing body of research that points to the physical and mental health benefits of singing with others. Sing With Us linked singing in the choir to reduced stress hormones and increased cytokines, proteins that can boost the body's ability to fight serious illness." Did you know that?
I did not know that. Yeah, I did not know that, but I'm happy to hear it.
Yeah.
The study kind of goes on to say, like, singing in general has been associated from various other studies to prove to be associated with lessened anxiety, stimulated memory for those with dementia, and increased lung capacity, and also an easing of postpartum depression.
Yeah,
all kinds of benefits that come from singing on its own. But now this article is saying there's even more that comes from singing together. And that's a lot of benefits. I was fascinated that they were testing their saliva.
I know,
literally,
I didn't know
right
you
after
could
you're
do
done
that.
singing, give me a saliva sample and we'll see. And I guess compare before and after the singing event.
I should do that with the choir members. Have little spittoon cups for all of them to spit in. All right, everybody spit before.
Need a sample.
That's right. Everybody now spit after.
That's so gross. But you should do it. Yeah. I thought that was really cool. I think it does sort of begin to tap into something that people who are into music, who do enjoy singing, probably already have. It maybe comes as no surprise to them. I myself have reaped benefits from singing and song and music and these kinds of things. So it might come as not that much of a surprise to them that it has all these benefits.
Right, and you could put it in that rare column of things that are good for you that you also enjoy, because everybody knows that, say, like exercising is good for you, but a lot of people don't enjoy exercising, and all of us certainly can say we don't. There are exercises that we don't enjoy, and if anybody out there is listening and says, "No, I enjoy all forms of exercise," if you've never been stretched by physical therapists, I was in pre-physical therapy at one point, and they stretched my tendons. which is the deepest burning I've ever experienced in my life. I thought my leg was going to like come off because if you stretch tendons, you don't think about this. You usually stretch muscles, but tendons are much sterner and they don't want to stretch. So when they start getting stretched, your body immediately sets off all these alarms like make it stop. So there's one form of exercise that I can tell you I don't like stretching in general, as you know. It's just it's the strangest. I think it's just one of the weirdest things that you can try to do because you're never done. Like you're never stretched. So it's like, I don't know. I can't get my head around it, it seems.
Yeah, you're never stretched.
Even though in theory it's a thing that I should have been doing. I mean, and I'm completely amazed that like these things you've seen about guys like Jean-Claude Van Damme that can just be so unbelievably flexible. And then you see like little kids, babies and toddlers and children are very flexible. It's something that we just let go of. But that anybody who's listening is involved in yoga or stretching of any kind knows like there are health benefits to that too. And so singing is a thing that is generally, it's just healthy to do if it's not in your life and you want a way to increase your health. This is a pretty easy thing to add in.
Yeah.
Now, what do you think are the reasons why singing is kind of falling off, or that you need to write an article like this to say to people, hey, singing is good for you and singing with others may be even better?
Yeah. Well, I think it's one more, yet another product of the age that we live in, the modern age. With the rise of the technologies and things that we have, here's one thing. My understanding is that singing used to be a popular form of entertainment, both going to hear people sing, but also singing with others. Yep. Whenever you don't have all of the forms of entertainment that we have today, you're left to figure out how to entertain yourselves. And it was not that uncommon for people you hear things about bar songs, right? Sure. In other words, people used to gather in pubs and bars, and one of the things they would do is they would sing songs together. Yep. Like, that's not happening anymore.
Kind of like, think about how if you've watched The Lord of the Rings and the hobbits get up on the table and start singing and dancing, that is the feel historically of like an English pub. Yeah. That's what they're aiming for. They didn't make that up. It's not like they were looking for something in a fantasy setting to stick into there. Like, no, there have been places that was the vibe. Yeah. But they're not now. I mean, one article that I read recently, a lot of the pubs, the public houses in England where the communities gathered, where it was put there specifically so people in the neighborhood had a common place to go, they're closing and becoming a whole lot of other things because people aren't going there. Right. And think about then how American suburbs often are. Is there a common place every once in a while? I know, like, for instance, there's a mobile home park that has sort of like a common building where you could rent for a birthday party or something. But no, it's not. It's not like subdivisions just say we ought to have this. But frankly, if you ask me right now, I think subdivisions ought to have that because you know how awkward people are about just like knocking on their door to say, hey, I'm your neighbor. Nice to meet you. Yeah. We don't have platforms to meet each other. And so we either have you're on my space or I'm on your space. And that's not a great way to go about it. Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's a part of why, because you look at bars and pubs and things like that. And what is it that people are doing now? Well, they've put up TVs, usually with sports on them, and everyone's watching a TV, usually, especially if you're at the bar.
Yeah, think about how awkward it would be to go to a bar and then at 10 o'clock tonight to say, hey, everybody, let's sing Gloria Gaynor, I Will Survive, you know? And I mean, there is the karaoke setting.
But that has become the thing now where if you're going to sing, you're not just going to go to any place to do it. You're specifically going to go to what is considered to be sort of a niche. I don't know. Not everyone loves karaoke or is a fan of it, but you go to this place. Well, and unfortunately, I think not always, but oftentimes for many people, the karaoke doesn't happen until they've had some liquid courage to help loosen them up.
And people can come in here and say, look, those people who are singing those old bar songs, they also had that liquid courage to some degree. But I would still argue that I'd never thought about this until just now, but what karaoke is a dumbed down, individualized attempt to have a communal activity because it's like, oh, that person up there, let's kind of laugh at what they're doing because it's sort of goofy, right? Rather than all of us participating communally. Yeah. We're more looking at this person in a setting that is more like a concert.
Yeah.
But like a bad concert, some sort of like, we all know we're not taking this seriously. So I don't think anybody could argue for me that what's happening in a karaoke setting is, as community creating, as people who, as a group without a leader, are just singing a song together for the merriment of it.
Right. Exactly. And so I think with the rise of entertainment, we have 100,000 different ways to be entertained today, usually by some sort of screen. That has become our means of entertainment, and music and singing as a means of entertainment and pleasure and joy has seen an exit. It's kind of moved on its way out.
Yeah, and
which is a bad thing.
And what do? We have professional other people singing songs, and we just listen to them, and we're surprised that anxiety continues to increase. And I mean, if we ask ourselves the question, was that good enough? Does that cover all the bases as far as what music is supposed to be in us? I don't think we have the answer to that question, but I think that we should listen to an argument why it's not. And another thing from a church context that I think you can say is, ask yourself why, if you're watching a service online, you don't sing along if you're listening to the song portion of it. Because you don't.
Right.
I don't think anybody really does. Why not? If it is just the same, why don't you feel the urge to sing along? Well, it's a little awkward because it's just me. Oh, goodness. One, I would prefer that you go ahead and do it if it's just you. But two, what does that tell you? If it's a little awkward because it's just me listening in, singing from my house, that is as simple and strong an argument as I have heard to prove it's not the same thing. To worship, quote, worship online is not the same thing.
Right.
You're not getting it done. And then this is one area where you can certainly.
Yep. So I think that's a part of why singing is not really a means that people regularly practice. I don't know. As I say that, I think there are still plenty of people that in their car, in their shower, these places where they are kind of cut off, no one could possibly hear this, will potentially cut loose if they're, if they're so inclined. But I think as far as a means of joy and merriment and these kinds of things, it's been replaced by other things.
Yeah.
Easier things.
Yeah.
But not better things.
Right. And good. If you sing in your car, good. But what we want for you is more than that. What I want for you is more than that. It's because all the things that are the reasons why you find it more comfortable to sing in your car than you do around other people. Well, I'm worried about what I sound like. Well, why? Well, I'm not as good as other people. What does that matter? I mean, these are things that are elements of our total life that we are not finding a lot of good answers. I mean, and look, and being now a music minister and it being part of my job to notice when people aren't singing. I'm not acting like everybody who shows up in church is singing, but I do think that they ought to. I think that it's good for all of us, and that it's to the glory of God. There's a reason why it says that when we get together, everybody has a song and a hymn and a spiritual song, and that we bring these to each other, and that's very meaningful.
Yeah. He goes on, Alexandra Moe, the author of this article, goes on to write about, so the story is, right, this woman who's battling cancer finds a sort of community, finds a place where she can have some joy and various benefits in a choir. That's where she sort of finds this.
Yeah, over in London, yeah.
In London, yeah. But also some health benefits that come along with it. But one of the things that the author writes, she says, choirs are large families, and singing in them promotes social bonding, which contributes to a sense of belonging and joy. Research bears this out. Studies have found that group singing fosters trust, cooperation, and social cohesion. And I think that anyone who has ever engaged in, if you've never sang in a choir, maybe it doesn't compute with you. But there is something about taking your voice and adding it to other voices to create this combination of sound and harmony and collective unison of voices to sing the song. There is something about it that creates a sense of joy with this person, bonding with this other person, someone who you might barely know at all. But when you're singing together, it creates a sense of, I don't know, of unity and like-mindedness, and even I think a certain amount of affection for those people as you're singing together. I've never sang in a choir proper, but there was an ensemble that we used to have at First Southern of various high school and middle school students that we age to age,
right,
is what I'm talking about. And we would get together and practice various songs, and people who had never sang in choirs before were coming together, youth and high schoolers, and learning how to sing harmony and all these kinds of things. It was great. But one of the things for sure that it did was we had a blast with one another and felt like we grew together as a group and knew each other well and bonded with one another over nothing but music, really. Right. I mean, there was so many other things that we didn't have in common. Typically, when we came together, it was for the purpose of singing and these kinds of things. But even with just that being the case, it really created a sense of community and belonging and trust. Yep. I mean, if you feel comfortable singing around someone and letting them hear you sing, that's a pretty vulnerable place to put yourself, and a lot of trust is involved there.
Right, because as anybody knows, someone can say something to you after they hear you sing that could crush you. Mm-hmm. You are opening yourself up in a very vulnerable way, and there's something really, really, something I could only compare to our identity. Our voice is almost like a proxy for our identity, so that when we share our voice in that way, we feel that someone knows something about us. And there are things that are basic to it, like, look, not everybody sings as well as the other. And so you are saying, I am contributing, knowing most of the time, for all those of us who don't have any sort of perfect pitch, I'm not doing this because I'm saying I'm the best in the room.
Right.
I'm doing it because it's worth doing and because I enjoy it, and for all these reasons that you might do it. And that it is a space where, just sort of like sports or like a lot of other communal activities, there are going to be people who just are natural and good at it. Mm-hmm. And then there's going to be people who struggle, and everywhere in between. And it is a shared experience that then we go forward with, and that either we can... afterwards, people who are very good will show humility or not. It just opens up a whole can of worms, but it is a shared activity.
And it's a shared activity that, regardless of how good or how bad all the people are, that you can have a choir made up of some people who are just phenomenal singers and can do great solos. Some people who, if you hear them sing on your own, you think, maybe you don't have any very much musical talent. I don't know, to put it nicely. But what is amazing is that when all of those people come together from all ranges of talents and giftings and abilities and create something that is, combining all of their voices and these kinds of things, they can together create something that sounds far and away better than anything that they could create on their own, right? Either from the bad singer or the good singer.
Yes, a musical collaboration is more than the sum of its parts. It really is.
And that is so true. Like, I really don't think I'm a very talented singer. I'm not really that great. I can usually sing on key. I can sing the right notes usually. Not every time, usually. But my voice combined with other voices singing various parts and notes and harmonies, it's amazing the beauty that can be created from that with a voice that is mediocre at best.
Yeah, and if that's not necessarily striking, a note, if nobody's had that experience, then you should think about how interesting it is when various professional people sing together. How, the voice of like a James Taylor and an Alison Krauss might go together, or just throw anywhere. I mean, I have a CD of Robert Plant, who is the lead singer of Led Zeppelin, and Alison Krauss. There have been shows like CMT Crossroads where they put together like a pop artist like a John Mayer with Brad Paisley, who's a country artist. And I have always been fascinated how this person's voice sounds like this alone and this person's voice sounds like this. But when they go together, it creates this whole different thing.
Oh, yeah.
And it doesn't always work great. It's not like you would just go every time like, oh, wow. But it's unpredictable. It is a whole new thing. And for this reason, one trend that I hope changes that I can say is that what you'll often see on YouTube is someone who will go, hey, look at this. I'm going to sing a song and play the guitar and then it's also me playing bass, and it's also me playing the drums, and obviously they just dub over themselves. And I always go, you know what, I would rather see you and 3 of your friends making music together.
Yeah.
And I know that your friends are busy, but goodness gracious, this is you by yourself for hours and hours on end, and then you record it and you show it to me, and yeah, it's impressive. But I think the moment where it is always confirmed for me that we could do better than this is when you hear someone harmonize with themselves, even if they're very good. It is this, like, say, blue on blue on blue on blue sort of situation where it's like, hey, there's like a whole bunch of other colors that you could have put in there, but I've got shades of blue that have the same, because what that is it's the same patterns in terms of vibrato and same patterns in terms of the tone of that person's voice just multiplied, which is not, to me, the heights of what music can become. This is why bands have historically gone so far, and we don't have at this point right now. There is nobody, some YouTube star who has made themselves over and over and over again, who then goes out on tour and then somehow puts on a show of them collaborating with themselves, right? And I hope, God help us if that's the future, because I hope it's not. Collaboration with people, with real people, is an amazing thing to see. Yep. And all of those people reacting to each other. One of the most amazing experiences I've ever had in my life is playing music with other people. Yeah. Yes, it has also been an amazing experience to learn to play myself. But when you are in the middle of a song and you're in it and you're looking around at other people who are sort of riding the wave with you, it is literally comparable to like surfing with other people. Because if you feel them pull a direction, it's kind of like surfing with ropes attached. It matters for you too. They're pulling you as well, and you have to respond to that. You have to figure out in the moment how to respond to that, and that's wonderful. It's a great, amazing, fun experience.
Yeah, and so there's so many benefits to singing in general, but then coming together and singing together as a group, it kind of takes it to the next level of like, there's even more joy to be experienced through singing, through song, than just what you could even experience on your own when you come together with other people. When you add in, I think, the communal aspect, the community aspect of singing that comes along with a choir or an ensemble, or even just a bunch of friends getting together to play music and sing songs. There's something special about it. There's something joyful about it. There's something healthy about it.
Right.
That, man, we would do well to add more of that kind of thing into our lifestyle, into our society, I think.
Right. And let me put an exclamation point on the 3 things you said a minute ago. That what does group singing do? It fosters trust, cooperation, and social cohesion. Everything I've read in the last 10 years, I've not read a single article, even like this one, that says, here's a way to have a certain increase in trust, cooperation, and social cohesion. In fact, what I read is, on the decrease is trust in communities, trust in relationships. On the decrease is cooperation in communities, cooperation in political parties, cooperation for anything, and social cohesion, meaning people wanting to be together, working together, accomplishing tasks together. And so to anyone who's hearing this, I am asking you, look in your life and find a place where you can sing with other people, and wherever that already exists, seek to be involved in more of it. If what that means is for you, you're a person who shows up at church and don't sing, please start singing. If you're a person who goes, every once in a while I try to show up for whatever we do at my church musically, well, yeah, redouble your efforts. That is fundamentally necessary. And the only reason we have been doing less of it is because we have been focusing on things that aren't good for our relationships and our health, our spiritual life. And here at this time of year, we have this case study in it. We're right here before December gets here. And what we're about to be handed is all these songs that we've heard and will be on. It's strange this year is, I feel that this year is the turning point where somehow Christmas music and Christmas advertising started after Halloween. I have never seen this exactly done this way. But hey, it's out there, and we hear these songs that we know. this could be related. Why is group singing on the decline? Because tradition is on the decline. One thing that you need to sing together is an agreement on what song we're going to sing together.
Right.
It does not work in such a way as we can all just go sing whatever's in your mind together. That's no good. That's not going to do it. You can't even sing your own version of whatever song. You have to go along with the group's version of the song that you're singing. And so that as we see these traditions decline, I mean, look, this time of year says to us there's a great advantage to having tried and true songs, things that we can come together and do that we all agreed upon, because what we're finding is we can't agree upon new things to just all do together. That doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And that's to our detriment.
Yeah. Here, funny story related to that, and like knowing what to sing and like having an agreed upon song. There was this really funny moment early on in the life of our church. We had a Christmas service. It wasn't a Christmas Eve service because it was when we were still meeting on campus at USI. We wanted to do something that was a Christmas Eve type service, but before then, so that the students could actually go to it who were on campus. And so there in the basement of the library, we had a service for the Christmas season, and the guy who was leading worship at the time, he was excellent, very talented musician, great with song selection and things like that. But for whatever reason, he decided he was going to have the whole congregation, the whole group, sing a new version of Joy to the World than the traditional Joy to the World. And I'm not talking about the Jeremiah was a bullfrog one. He didn't go that far, right? Mm-hmm. It was the normal Joy to the World lyrics, but with a slightly different tune, kind of cadence to it, whatever. Yeah. But he didn't warn anyone. He just started playing and singing the song, and literally, just like in real time, you saw him get overruled, vetoed by the congregation who disregarded wholeheartedly his his leading of how the song was going to be sung.
Let us tell you what we think about your version of Joy to the World.
And he tried to get him back and like sing it the way he was trying to sing it, but no. They sang it the normal way.
Yes.
It was just a really funny moment for me of like, wow, the group sounded awesome. And there was
they were like, no, we already know this one.
Yeah, you are getting it wrong.
Yeah, right.
Listen to us. Let us lead on this one. And so
you apparently forgot how this song goes.
That was kind of what my thought was for a minute. I was like, he totally messed up and forgot how to sing Joy to the World. No. He intentionally tried to sing it in a different sort of way. But it was a funny moment where the group, with a song that, man, this is a Christmas classic.
Yes.
You kind of just have to let it be what it is. If you don't like the tune, it's kind of like tough. Mm-hmm. and the congregation said, no, this is how to sing it, and this is how we're singing it. And it was great. It was unfortunate for him, but yeah, he took it well, and after the fact was like, yeah, maybe I shouldn't have tried to.
Yeah, you better, if you were wanting to change how a song goes, you better have it all sorted out.
Oh yeah. And give a heads up. Maybe if everyone had a heads up, we would have listened to him.
Yeah, because in that situation, a lot of times people will just listen to you and let you, because it's hard to sing a song, especially, I think it's harder to sing an old song in a new way than it is to just learn a song altogether.
Yeah.
You have to retrain your brain, your mind, your heart, muscle memory is gone and everything, you have reinforcements otherwise. So another reason why this is really important to talk about is that a casualty of the pandemic in a lot of ways is choirs in general, church choirs in particular. This is certain organizations, being that I do pick up choir music regularly, organizations have closed and continue to close that make choir music because as is mentioned in this article, when you have a global pandemic and you are trying to stop the spread, you don't bring back singing next to other people for quite a while. Yeah. And so this was one of those super spreader sort of ideas that this would be a thing we don't want to do for quite a while. And as a result, it is kind of like plenty of small businesses. It's a program that got killed and has not come back, that people have not made the choice to come back, and frankly, it is not an easy sort of program to just go, hey, everybody, we'll start again next Sunday, because if you're going to do like a typical soprano, alto, tenor, bass choir, you need to have a strong soprano and a strong alto and a strong tenor and a strong bass. And if you lose those, then all of a sudden you might not you may think you're going to have 4 parts, but no, it takes a skilled person in each of those spots, and then an understanding of the people who need to follow those people, that, hey, you need to follow them and not try to just make your own way.
Right.
And so plenty of churches have gone, well, 4 people in the choir, 3 people in the choir is not doing it. So let's just take a break on it. And I think that's unfortunate. As a person who, it's not like I didn't grow up with choir music, so it's not as if I looked at choir music growing up and went, oh man, this is the pinnacle of what music has to be. I think it is one great expression of what music can be. And I think the most powerful thing about it in the church is that it is a great expression of what the body of Christ ought to be. Yeah. Various parts of the body in unison, working toward the same goal, and that it is a very powerful means of doing that. And when we don't have other ways we can do that, thankfully our people do serve in various ways throughout the week, but you don't have your evangelists right next to your cooks, right next to your preachers, right? Like, everybody can't be side by side in some sort of area where a lot of these gifts go up to different places. But this choir thing is a thing that can all be done similar to a band with everybody playing a different instrument. But as difficult as it is to learn to sing in a choir, it is more difficult to take the time to learn an instrument and then to learn to play with other people. And so it's just a challenge, but one that is unfortunately, I know a lot of churches, choir program closed and has not come back and doesn't show signs of coming back. And choirs are old. Choirs are an expression coming out of the Middle Ages, that something out of the Christian tradition that has endured for a long time that is unfortunately struggling right now in a lot of ways because our ears are attuned to that single voice. Mm-hmm. But if the only person singing is somebody who with the quality of a soloist, man, that knocks out lots of people. I would say 1 in 100 people is a soloist.
Yeah.
If not less.
Yeah, and I do think it's sad, and I, to a certain degree, would lament the sort of losing of choirs as sort of a commonplace thing in the church. But at the same time, as you and I sit here and talk about the benefits of singing together, and one of the means in which that can happen is through a choir. At the same time, I would say just because the choir is going away doesn't mean that your opportunity to do this goes away. Yeah. What this actually means is that how I would encourage Christians is you need to be coming to church. You need to be singing together with your brothers and sisters in Christ. What we're describing that happens in a choir, while it might not be as formal, while there might not be an expectation of singing designated parts, there is still a communal aspect of coming together and singing songs together, united in the words that we are singing, united in the purpose for what we're doing, and all of the same benefits come along with that.
Yeah,
and so
there are scary spiritual things that I think we've lost just as a people. Like, why, if I were to say the words "kumbaya," why is that only now a sort of allusion to the past? Oh yeah, when we used to go to camp and we would sing songs together. Why is it supposedly a little bit cheesy? I think because we've conditioned ourselves that vulnerability is not something we do.
Right.
Kumbaya means come by here, Lord. Mm-hmm. That's what the song means. And I mean, the fact that probably 99% of the people who I could say kumbaya to would have heard of it, but that probably 1% would even know what it meant. And then would also still feel like, oh yeah, kumbaya. There is no modern equivalent. There is no song that is just this sort of like, oh yeah, you know when you sang that sitting around a campfire. Nope, there's not one now. There's not. There's no Chris Tomlin song. There's not a single one. Okay, what have we lost there? For all of our supposed gains, which there have been technological gains, we have lost communal, shared singing and shared events. And that is a big part of our anxiety. Mm-hmm. And we've come up with new words and new ways of expressing what is a fundamental problem that we have individualized, and we don't even know how to relate on deeper levels anymore. And that is a big problem. And we have to get back to it. You have to find ways for yourself that if you are not doing this, you need to figure out how you're going to get there because it's good for you. We were made to do this. And this stuff, these weird ideas that we have that some of this stuff is cheesy, we need to look deeper into that because it's more complicated than that. That is not a good enough answer.
Right.
I mean, while we're on the subject of choir, I don't know the current stat, but here's a stat from 2019. It says in 2019, some 54 million Americans sang in choirs, and those who did were found to be more optimistic, more likely to vote, less lonely, possessed stronger relationships, and were more likely to contribute positively to their communities than non-singers. 40 million Americans, 54 million sang in choirs. That number is lower now by a significant amount. I would think it's at least half.
Yeah, I think you could probably go lower than that. Yeah, here's one of the things that the article is kind of pointing out, is that singing is calming, and it comes with psychological benefits, but if you join that with singing with a group, then you're also building meaningful relationships and developing community.
Yep.
And so there's kind of two goods being combined when you talk about choir singing.
Yep.
And what I would sort of say as well is I would say if you add one more component to that, and that would be singing to the glory of God, singing together to the glory of God, then you're adding in just one more possibility for sort of maximizing the joy in the experience and the benefit of the experience of singing.
People should think about how modern political movements do not have songs. None of them. I can't name one on the right or the left.
Yeah.
There is no comparison to say "We Shall Overcome" from the civil rights movement. There are no songs. Something is happening that these secular movements. It's not just that they're different. They don't have soul. That there is no depth striking all the way to what we love as humans. And I think if you look into them, mostly what you'll find out is that they strike depth in terms of what we fear, what we hate. And you don't sing. You don't want to sing about those things, nor are they conducive. If you've ever tried to write a song about things that you fear, fear might be a subtext. It's not going to be the main text. Nobody wants to write songs like that.
Right.
And so we are lacking this stuff.
Yeah.
And there's no sign of it. Listen, the fact that I can't point to a single song of any of these modern political movements, there's none.
Yeah.
That should tell us something.
Used to be commonplace, didn't it?
Yes.
Like if you're running for office, back in the day, you would have like a song. It would be like your campaign song. You know?
Yeah, and anybody who's paid attention to politics in the last 20 years, the politicians will try to pick up a song, and then the artist will say, "Hey, don't use my song," which is, I think, fine because artists don't have to be co-opted.
Right.
But when nobody in the movement is creating a song that represents the movement, that ought to tell us something. And I will even further own up to part of it as Protestants, that it's because a lot of these movements mirror a fallen Protestantism. We don't know exactly what we're for, but we know what we're protesting against. Mm-hmm. Well, that's not... As if we could consider Martin Luther the first Protestant, the songs that he wrote, "A Mighty Fortress Is Our God," is not about, I'm against the Catholic Church. Yeah. I'm against the Pope. It's about how God is the one we should be living our lives in and how he will take care of us. He wrote songs out of love about the things that he loved. Yeah. For all of the... this was a guy who would talk about the things that he didn't like as well.
Sure.
But... we've lost that. We are more defined by what we're against, and that's a part of a problem. And it shows up here as well. This is something we've talked about before, but it's showing up here. And another thing that I can say, a sense of achievement. She says here, a sense of achievement comes from creating notes with the body and by working together over many months to master a work. The text is often inspiring or beautiful. There is agreement about whatever we're singing about, that it's worth singing about. And we who... one of the blessed insights we get to have as Christians is that we know we were made to praise and made to love, and that you will praise good things, and that what a song is a sustained consideration of why something is praiseworthy. Thankfully, we do still have love songs, but if you even look at what our love songs are about, I watched a YouTube video the other day that shows how weird and ridiculous the time that we live in, which this was about how Baby It's Cold Outside has been brought out, is generally no longer considered to be a great Christmas song. And here's the thing, I don't think it is either.
Yeah,
I
don't care that
odd,
much.
weird song,
Yeah,
kind of. But at the same time that there was outrage over that song, and that whenever it was played on the radio, people were calling in literally the song that was the number one pop song was WAP, which is explicitly, horribly sexual, and not in any sort of, it is glorifying the lowest parts of what sexuality can be. And
Top the charts for months.
At the same time, these two things are happening. And if you want a case study in how confused our culture is, and if you go, well, I don't know, I find that kind of weird. Do you think in 100 years that you could say, no, I all these songs that we find popular right now, nobody will have a problem with them in 100 years? Like, oh goodness, if you think you know that, then you're deluding yourself. Yeah. We're in a very strange cultural moment. So do it. Singing is powerful. Seek out. If you're going, man, I can't think of songs that I would like to sing with other people, well, start your looking. There are songs out there, and it's worth looking into.
Yeah, and I think a lot of our listeners probably are believers, are Christians, and I would say go to church. Yeah. And what songs that you're singing in church, like, look them up, learn them. I think it's a good thing for us to be able to sing the songs that are part of our worship, songs that praise the Lord, praise Jesus. I think it'd be good and nice for us to be able to sing those without having to have a hymnal in front of us, or without having to have the lyrics in front of us. But unfortunately for most people, we aren't to that place to where we can just sing impromptu without the music in front of us. And it's still good. Hey, if you need it in front of you, then sing with it in front of you. Don't feel guilty that you don't. But it is there, go to your hymnals. Yep. I don't know if you've taken much time to read through like various hymnals, but even songs that maybe you've heard before, maybe you haven't. Hymnals are books filled with all kinds of really cool and beautiful and rich sort of teaching and expression of all kinds of, a whole range of things, ranging from, like you said, Martin Luther, "A mighty fortress is our God," to assurance that we have in God, to you talked about fear being not necessarily a main thing, but I think of a song like "He Will Hold Me Fast," written some time ago, in which one of the first lines is, "When I fear, my faith will fail. Yep. He will hold me fast." There's a whole range of emotions being expressed in these songs, and I think it'd be good for us to sort of brush the dust off of them and bring them back to the surface and sing them together. And so, like, find ways to do that. Find ways to take advantage of a whole. I'm telling you, I mean, there's a wealth of songs that are great songs to sing and to sing with one another. They just need to kind of be brought out. You know what I mean? And so do that. Bring those out, and maximize the benefits of singing and singing together by singing together to the glory of God, glorifying the God that we worship. I was just going to say, and I don't know where our time is at. Are we doing okay on time-ish? Well, one of the things in the article that it's just a kind of a quick line, but about singing, that this one person they interviewed says, talking about music, it's unique among the arts. It's both completely abstract and profoundly emotional. It has no power to represent anything particular or external, but it has a unique power to express inner states or feelings. Music can pierce the heart directly, end quote. And I'm just like, I agree with that whole statement. I'm like, I know personally from my own experience that you can listen to a song, and even if those same words were just read to you or stated, you might not be all that moved by it. But when you hear that in the form of the song in connection with the music as it is written and expressed and sung with proper melody and things like that, it can bring you to tears. It can affect you in a way that sometimes you're like, why am I so affected by this. I remember hearing a song actually by a band that you really like and recommended to me. The band is Nickel Creek, and the song is The Lighthouse Tale.
Oh, yeah.
And I listened to that song, and I'm like, man, why is this song, man, so touching, so, emotion evoking? And a part of why is the content. The content of the song is sort of geared in that way. But if you listen to that song and the way that it builds from the start of the song to the end, to sort of the climax of the song, and the sorrow that is expressed, even through the minor keys that are used, and the each chorus builds on the next one. So like a new voice, a new harmonization is added in each time the chorus is sang again. Anyway, it had the ability to, even though the story in and of itself was somewhat emotional, I would have never cried just hearing those lyrics read. But when I heard it in the song and I listened to the music, and it kind of drew the emotion out of you. Music has the ability to do that in order to draw emotion out of us, or even create emotions that cause us to feel certain ways, certain things. And for many people, music is a means of sort of expression of emotions and helping to deal with various emotions like that. We talk about singing the blues, and that statement has real quality to it, where when we are feeling emotionally down or sorrowful or whatever, or in times when we feel a great amount of joy, being able to express that through song is a marvelous outlet. It's a great form of healing. It's a great gift that God has given us to be able to do that.
I heard a guy named Rick Elias say once, he was an artist, that we need artists because they express the inexpressible. They express for us what we can't express for ourselves. Yeah. And anyone who has ever felt trapped inside of yourself knows that you need an outlet for that, and that it is very inadequate to say to someone, I'm just really sad. When that sentence ends, it is like it echoes, because it's just like, that did not get it done to say that. And that is true of the breadth of what we experience. When you are 14 or 15 years old, love songs will make sense to you. You will find someone, and then you will hear a song and you'll go, I feel that about them. Yeah. And a lot of this stuff comes on you at different times. But an interesting exercise that people could do that I bet a lot of people have never done. A friend of mine who really loves music, he will read liner notes, read lyrics before he ever listens to, say, a record, right? And he writes himself, so he wants to see the words that they're working with before he then sees them kind of put it to the musical structure. And I think that's a great practice, because you might not relate to those words at all. And some of the most amazing pieces of music I've ever heard, if I just read them ahead of time, I would have gone, there's not much here. And then to hear people process it musically is, that's the genius in a lot of ways. And so there's just so much that can be done that way. Part of what happens here, though, is that this part of the article you're referring to, they talk about, okay, look, if this is stuff that you're not quite relating to, hey, did you sing lullabies when you were a kid? Yeah. When did you stop, and why did you stop? Is it because they stopped being powerful? Because I doubt it. Lullabies are little versions of what we need to have as adults. Lullabies do comfort and calm and soothe. But if you then don't find the breadth of emotion and the breadth of expression through songs, well, you need to look for that. And this reminds me of a very valid criticism that has come of Christian music for years, which is we can't just write songs that are about the good days, and we can't just write songs that are about God's great and everything's going well and I'm so happy. That's not the Christian experience. That is not the New Testament. And if you were to write songs straight out of every part of the New Testament, that's not how all of them would go. That's not how Jesus' songs would go. Jesus spent a lot of days alone, struggling. He ended his life with all of his friends having left him. He is not going to sing from the cross,
apple red happiness,
right?
Popcorn cheerfulness.
There you go.
Cinnamon singing inside. I don't know if you've ever heard that song. I know I brought it up one time at a weekend that I preached at.
Yep.
And then Jason Paul, a good friend of ours, was so kind as to teach it to the whole group and then sing it for me the following night. That
Yep.
was great. But yeah, you're exactly right. The Christian experience as Christians, I mean, even just thinking as believers, as human beings, we need an expression of more than just gladness and all things good and everything's fine. There are times in our lives when we need those sort of, and we are living in a place where we can express those senses of joy and how good God is right now, and you know, all these kinds of things. But there's also a need for us to be able to say, man, I'm beaten down.
Yep.
Man, I'm broken.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm going to throw out the name Andrew Peterson, which I mentioned before, who has he's dealt with depression, and he has songs that are the whole breadth, the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. And he is a name that I'll throw out. Rich Mullins. I'll throw out David Crowder. You need to seek out artists who are expressing the broad range of what we experience, and continue to encourage them. All the people in your life who love music, the person in your church who's responsible for music, encourage them to seek out songs that cover the whole range of what it is to be a Christian, and encourage them in general. It's a hard thing. Music is a very heart level kind of issue, and so it strikes us, and we're not. Our hearts are not often able to be very sort of circumspect about it. We have our opinions. We have music often is also tied to our background, kind of where we're from. Country music either strikes you in a positive way or it strikes you in a negative way. Most people are not neutral about country music, and music is that way in general. Music hits us so strongly that that most of us could say, well, here's an instrument or a type of music that I could go, I love, and here's a type that I can't stand at all. Well, it all has value, but we are not able to be neutral about it, and that's fine. I think some of that is just you need to know that some of that is just your own personal preference, and that it's like all your other personal preferences. Hand those over to God and let Him handle them. Yeah. But that we need to lean into this and seek to express everything that is happening in our lives. We're lonely some days. We're excited some days. We're empty some days. We're all of the range of what we experience. There ought to be music for that. We ought to seek that out.
Yeah. If I could throw just a couple more names of artists out there that I think
please.
That reach maybe a little bit different genres than the ones you just said, because those are all not exactly the same genre, but within a similar corner. But also, I think of groups like Beautiful Eulogy, if you've ever heard of them, King's Kaleidoscope, Ghost Ship. These are some bands that they're Christian bands creating content from a Christian perspective, but also they deal with a whole range of different emotions and beautiful artistry in song. And so I would commend those to you as well. Sure.
Yeah, and there are... there's a lot. There's thankfully a lot of music out there. There is not a lot of sort of what you could consider. There's not a breadth of mainstream Christian music, and there's not a breadth of music right now that I would say is just nourishing to your soul as a Christian. You have to seek it out. You're going to have to go after it, because what is sort of being served up is a lot of worship music, which is frankly kind of the only kind of music we're going to get in a corporate setting as well, and that has a place, but we need more than that even, and so seek it out. Let us then move to tie this up. It was a G.K. Chesterton quote that I might have mentioned before, but it certainly applies here. Anything worth doing is worth doing badly. And so your question is this worth doing? And I say yes. So whatever it takes, if it's worth doing, then you should just do it. And so as adults, I think we're overly interested in only doing what we're good at. In always looking competent. One of the movies that's on at my house a whole lot is Frozen and Frozen 2, and my favorite song, well, I don't like Let It Go and certain songs out of Frozen because of the messaging. I think they are good, bad songs. It's good musically, bad in terms of lyrical content. A song like Let It Go, no right, no wrong, no rules for me. I'm free to be me. My goal has always just been to be me.
The artistry is good, but the content is lacking. Or that's maybe, right. I think you and I both went to actually a breakout session at Together for the Gospel like 6 years ago. It's been a long time. But like 6 years ago, where was it Trip Lee that was there, and he did a breakout session on like artistry and art. And he kind of said, there's a lot of art out there in the hip hop world, especially.
Yeah.
That he said, I think, man, that is great art as far as like there's a lot of talent and ability being displayed in that art, but it's at the same time being used to display something terrible and communicate something awful, and the content is just garbage. So yeah, what you're saying there maybe applies to some of the Disney songs you're talking about too. The artistry can be really good and very talented, but the content of it can be lacking.
Right. My favorite song, probably of all of the songs from either of the Frozen movies, is "This Will All Make Sense When I'm Older," where Olaf sings about how, listen, when you're an adult, you just know everything, and everything makes sense, and it's probably good to be in a scary woods where there's monsters around. There's great explanation for why this is fine. This is all happening, and that is a great. We need to have. To be poked fun at as adults, that we walk around going like, got all the answers, kids, know it all, nothing catches me off guard, got simple explanations for all the things that are happening. That is not Christian maturity. Christian maturity is, God knows, I'm working on it, and in the meantime, we follow the authority that he puts in place. He's the highest. I'm put over my children as an authority. But that I don't have to act as if I do know everything. And so I welcome songs like that because we should not always have to feel and look competent. That's not what Christian maturity is. That is actually a form of pride, not humility.
Yeah. And I think about, what you said about part of why we don't is because we only do things that we're quote unquote good at, right? Or when we feel comfortable doing it. And I will forever, it'll be burned into my brain and in my ears, the sound of my papa, my grandfather, when we would go to their church.
Yeah.
And as much as he was a terrible singer. I'm going to go ahead and start there. Terrible singer. And yet that never, ever, ever stopped him from belting out whatever hymn they were singing in their little country church. And when I say he was a terrible singer, I mean, if it was the one note that he sang on, he sounded great. But he basically sang one note for the whole song.
Oh my.
It was like, blessed assurance, Jesus is mine.
Now we all know what it sounded like. Yeah.
Yes, sounded awful. But he would sing, not only would he sing it, he would sing it out loud with gusto and with conviction. I mean, he loved it. He loved being together with his brothers and sisters in Christ and singing to his God and his Savior, regardless of how good he sounded. And he had no misconceptions about not sounding good. Although he had really bad hearing too, which is maybe why he sang so loud. Sure. But he never let it stop him. Yeah. And for me, that kind of served as a little bit of a model for me. That plus the fact that my own dad was a amazing singer with a great voice and just with a love of song and singing.
Yeah.
It was, but those things in combination with the other things really just, I think, have fostered in me a desire of like, hey, I don't care if I sound good. I don't care if I sound bad. There is a joy found in singing, even still, even despite that fact. There's a joy found in singing.
Absolutely, because too often we just want to feel comfortable.
Yeah.
And singing, is not comfortable necessarily.
Not always.
You will run out of breath. It's sort of like swimming in some ways, that it is an exercise that you'll have to figure out how to breathe because it doesn't naturally happen, but it is worthwhile without a doubt. And then the last big point that I want to make is that singing, we often do think about the sort of, hey, singing for joy, singing out of love, and these sorts of things. But that one particular element of singing that is lost, that needs to happen. Well, I said earlier we don't, sing. There aren't a lot of great songs about fear. There are many great songs that are sad songs. The entire biblical category of lament, there is an Old Testament book called Lamentations that is literally Jeremiah, the weeping prophet's sad songs put in a book. It's one of the 66. There is, in fact, no song that is, songs of cheer. The Psalms are Psalms. Some of them are Psalms of cheer, but there are songs of cursing of others. There are songs of sadness. There's all the range in there as well. And so if you can't think of, or if your church does not teach you songs that help you express sadness, you're gonna have sadness in your life, and you need to express it. You do. Yeah. You do. This is a part. If this strikes you as odd, anyone who's hearing this, you need to know that there ought to be songs that, think about this. If you don't have any artist or any song in your heart to help you express the inexpressible, you have lost loved ones. You have had broken relationships. You have had your hopes up that you were going to get a job that you feel that would have made you happy, and then you didn't get it. You need to have ways to lament and express your sadness at this. And it is not a sin to express sadness.
Right.
The world is sad. We are told that the world is broken, and we long for the day when it will be made right. In the meantime, the world will continue to be broken in some ways. And what we have to do many days about that is to express that we are sad about it, right. That brokenness has found its way into our hearts. And these are things that will then, as we sing them with others, prove to be especially life-giving. Yeah. And I remembered as I was coming to this point about this article that a while back, when Tim Keller died, I saw that the program for his funeral was online, and much to my made me really happy to see all the songs that he had picked out. And so here's a list of the songs that he picked out himself. He has notes himself. He wrote for why he picked these songs, but I'll just share the songs themselves, because if you don't have sad songs or songs that you can cling to in times of sadness, these are not all necessarily songs of lament. This is a great place to start. Yeah. So the first one, he was way more cultured than me, which is not a surprise. Violin Sonata No. 5. What is OP? Option 24. OP, whatever that means. Spring, from Adagio Molto Espressivo by Beethoven. There you go.
Man, your Italian was on point, though.
There you go, I tell you. All right, next, hymn, Immortal, Invisible, God Only Wise. And then Amazing Love, How Can It Be? Anybody who's a child of the 90s like me, this is an older Amazing Love, not the Amazing Love we learned in the 90s. The next is a hymn, How Firm a Foundation, which I know and we sing pretty regularly here. Next is Jesus Lives and So Shall I. What a moment to be able to have that sung at your funeral.
Yeah,
that's no powerful stuff. Next, For All the Saints Who From Their Labor Rest, a song that I don't know that one. Next is one that came in very early for me by a fellow named Keith Green. I think his wife wrote this. There is a Redeemer. There's a Redeemer, Jesus, God's own Son. Precious Lamb of God, Messiah, Holy One. Great song, great song. And then the last one is another instrumental string quartet in D major, K575, Allegretto by Mozart. So there you go.
Yeah. I'm going to have to go look up some of those songs. You gave me this, right? And there's some songs on there that I have heard of, but then some that I haven't. And I'm like, man, you just read a title like For All the Saints Who From Their Labor Rest. Yeah. And that makes me go, I want to read that song.
Yep.
I want to hear it sung, you know. There is so much good, so much that comes from singing and singing together. Singing carries with it such an ability to affect our emotion and influence our thinking. As Christians, I think it's good for us to recognize that and to make the most of it. And I think about this, like, what do we do with an article like this as believers, as the church? And I think for me, if I could sort of to give my concluding thoughts, I think some of the things that this ought to drive us to do is, first of all, it ought to motivate us to get more comfortable singing together, which means doing it more, overcoming the sort of anxieties, fears of it, and making it a practice and a part of what it means to live in community with one another. We sing together, get more comfortable singing together, to reap the benefits that come from that. I think a part of it, too, is that Christians need to be creating good music.
Yep.
If you have a talent for writing music, or maybe you're like, well, I don't write music, but I'm going to write poetry. Well, hey, find someone who's musically talented, get in touch with them, and begin to maybe come up with that.
Yep.
I think it'd be a really cool thing if we as churches and congregations began to create some of the songs that we sing together as a worship. But reclaim the space. Don't just give up the spade of musical arts to the culture and to the world, but reclaim it for the purpose that God has actually given us this gift of music, and that is for His glory. And then third, I would say we need to use singing and song, and especially singing together when we can. And there's one kind of main thing that comes to my mind, is that the benefits that come from singing there's a host of them, right? But here we are in the Christmas season, and you and I have both experienced what it's like to go and sing Christmas carols
Yes.
to people who are shut into their homes, to people who are in a nursing home or in hospitals or these various settings. Or maybe it's just someone who you love and you want to express some joy and to them. Christmas caroling, once again, a dying thing of the past, is a guaranteed way. I'm not saying like you'll have over 50%. I'm saying it's a guarantee that every door that you knock on, every hallway that you walk down and sing Christmas carols in, you are going to brighten everyone's day. Yeah. Everyone is going to find joy in what you're doing there. Mm-hmm. It's something that we've done together, you and I, at various times and with various groups. Something that me and my family are going to go out and do here in a couple weeks. We're going to go out and sing Christmas carols to some people who we know and want to bless in that way. I would encourage everyone to not count that out as a means of using singing, using song, even singing together to bring joy. But also there's ways that we can sing together to build community and to express thoughts, emotions, feelings that otherwise would be difficult to express. As you said, artists or music help us express the inexpressible. That's true. And so finding ways to do that. Singing is a gift from God. And music and song and this form of artistry, not only is it a gift from God, it's one that he commands us to engage in and that we have as a part of our corporate weekly worship because God has called us to do so. That alone ought to make us recognize and see the significance of it, the importance of it, and the power in it, if nothing else. And so I would implore you with that.
Yep, absolutely. All right, we'll leave it there. This has been Empires of the Future.
And we'll see you in the future.